Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a new session of the Art Club. It's a pleasure for us that you are present tonight. And today I will talk a little about photography. I will mention what the photography means, its history, and some quite relevant data. What is photography? As its name suggests, from the Greek photos that mean light and graphos that means drawing or writing, photography is a technique and an art form that consists of capturing images using light, projecting it, and fixing it in the form of images on a sensitive medium, either physical or digital. The entire photography is based on the same principle as a camera obscura. This is an optical instrument that consists of a totally dark compartment with a small hole at one end through which light enters and projects images onto the dark background, images of what happens outside the compartment, although reversed. In this case, the photographic cameras, the principle is exactly the same, except that they are equipped with lenses to sharpen the focus of the projected, mirrors to revert the projected image, and finally, a photosensitive tape or a similar digital sensor which captures the images and save it so they can be developed later or viewed digitally. How was photography invented? Photography didn't have a single inventor, as it was the consequence of a successive series of technologies dating from the 19th to the 20th century. Before photography was invented, as we understand it today, the development of various technological objects was necessary. The first of them was the camera obscura, the one that we talked on the previous slide, which was used even in antiquity in the 5th and the 6th century before Christ. However, it was not until the 19th century that this technology led to the invention of artifacts more similar to photography. Among them, the daguerreotype, heliographer, and cyanotype were mainly spread. The existence of these previous techniques was essential for the development of photography. For this reason, those responsible for its invention and improvement are too numerous for there to be an inventor of photography. Let's talk a little about the history of photography. The first successful experimental photography attempt was heliographer, discovered by Joseph Niepce around 1820. This French chemist used a camera obscura where he exposed a surface of paper, glass, and metals such as tin, copper, and pewter for 8 hours. The result was a more or less clear impression of what was observed, but as the issue of fixation hadn't been resolved, the images thus obtained were slowly being lost. In 1825, he obtained the first permanent image using a Judean bitumen mixture as a photosensitive mixture. This one is the one that we can see right now is the first photograph or the earliest known, where the image depicts the view from an observer's window at the Niepce State in France. These experiences were inherited by Louis Daguerre, Niepce's partner, who in 1837 developed and spread the daguerreotype around the world. It was a similar procedure to his partner, but it used mirror polished silver surface and revealed it with mercury vapors. The images thus obtained were unique and required of a lot of light, which is why they were made only outdoors. Exposure time were still long, about 10 minutes, so it was necessary to use chemical accelerators. This picture, the one that we can see, is named Boulevard du Temple. It's an image of a busy street, but because the exposure time that was too long, the traffic was moving too much to appear. There is only an exception, and is the man that is in the bottom left corner who stood still getting his boots polished. Here, we can see Robert Cornelius' self-portrait taken in 1839, approximate quarter plate daguerreotype. This self-portrait is the first photographic portrait image of a human ever produced. First photographic prints were made in 1840 when William Fox Talbot developed the Carolite. This system made it possible to obtain paper negatives from the photographic image. This could be positivized on another sheet of paper moistened in acid solution of cybernitrate. Then cyanotype was introduced, which produced copies of the original. In 1851, Gustave Le Gray introduced a new photographic mechanism, the wet collodion. It consists of spilling this substance between two glass sheets and then developing in ammoniacal iron sulfate. Since then, the massification of photographic image began with this method, which prevailed until 1885. Although color photography was explored through the 19th century, initial experiments in color resulted in projected temporary images rather than permanent color. Moreover, until the 1870s, the emulsions available were not sensitive to green or the red light. The first color photo and additive projected image of a certain ribbon was taken in 1861 by the Scottish physicist James Clerk Maxwell. Let's talk a little about modern photography. In 1888, George Eastman introduced the first color camera. As he used reels of photographic film, he forever revolutionized the world of photography by making it accessible to anyone, not just for the professional photographers. With the invention of photographic film, glass plates then stopped being used. However, they were needed again for a period of 1907, as they were the only method of taking color photographs using various monochromes glass plates. The photograph was never the same again. Cameras became easy to use without the need of professional training. In 1931, the flash was invented, which made it possible to photograph at night or in low light situations. In 1948, the instantaneous or Polaroid photography was spread, which was developed in just 60 seconds. Digital photography appeared after the technological revolution of the second half of the 20th century in 1990. This process replaced photosensitive film with electronic sensors that perform the same function and eliminate the need for development. Here we have some types of photographies. We can talk about different depending on its context. We have advertising photography, the one that fits advertising or marketing, that is the promotion of consumer goods and services. Usually it is digitally intervened and corrections are made to make it more seductive. We have the fashion photography. It is taken at fashion shows and events to show clothing, hairstyles, makeup, etc. It goes hand in hand with the advertising, but digitally, interventions are not usually done. We have the documentary photography, also called historical or journalistic, since it is done for informational, reporting, historical value, or reporting purposes. We have the landscape photography. It's taken to reproduce the natural beauty of landscape and be it in an aerial, terrestrial, or underwater shot, they are usually open and colorful. We have the scientific photography that is taken with telescopes, microscopes, or other scientific tools in order to show that is commonly not possible with the naked eye. We have the artistic photography, the one that for aesthetic or experimental purposes, such as montages, compositions, etc. And finally, we have the portrait photography that is equivalent to the painting of portraits of bygone eras, and it's intended to show someone dear or famous or beautiful at a certain point in their life. Photography as an art. Photography is today considered one of the fine arts. It's considered the eighth fine art. However, in its beginning, it was considered rather a cold and impersonal technique or even a parlor trick, not very refined. Therefore, it could show greater or lesser ability, but it was not valued as art. However, throughout the 20th century, novel aesthetic Trends emerged reflecting the sensibilities of time, thus the subjective and expressive potential of photography opened up.